Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As you may know, there's been some tensions between the United States and the Iranian government. So, I saw this video called, "What Would a War with Iran Look Like?" Now, I don't really know, to be honest. I don't really know what a war with Iran would look like. I'm not the biggest fan of just invading countries just left and right. But, I don't know, maybe it could work out. Maybe it could be like Vietnam Part 2. I don't really know. So we're going to watch this video and we're going to find out what it would look like. Of course, I don't own this video. All credit goes to Caspian Report. I'll leave the link to the video in the description. Go check out his channel. He's done some pretty good stuff. I do like his content. I watched a few of his videos, and from what I've seen, he does a pretty good job with these things. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Tensions between Washington and Tehran are once again at their peak after two oil tankers were attacked on June 13th near the entrance to the Persian Gulf. The incidents were the second in a month, and US officials were quick to blame Iran but cited no proof. Iran meanwhile denied any
Well, who else could it be? I mean, I don't think Saudi Arabia would be blowing up oil tankers.
Wrongdoing. Although it's unclear what exactly happened, the event has stoked fears that a military confrontation between Iran and the United States is imminent. Truth, however,
I hope Iran knows that we have a bigger military than them. Like, I'm fairly certain that we have more troops in Texas than Iran has in their entire country. I think they know that. Like, why are they trying to start something that they know they can't win?
is the first casualty of war, and so it matters little what truly happened. Yet miscalculation, misinterpretation, and bad judgment can conspire to turn a minor clash into a full-blown fight. What we want to know is how a hypothetical conflict between Iran and the United States would play out. I'm your host Shirvan, and welcome to Caspian Report. Cybersecurity is a growing concern that affects not only government institutions but also individuals. 2002 war game, which pitted the United States against Iran. It was the largest exercise of its kind, racking up a total cost of roughly $250 million and involving some 13,500 participants with numerous live training sites. 2 days into the simulation, the Iranian team sent 19 US ships, including one aircraft carrier, to the bottom of the Persian Gulf.
Whoa, they actually did that? Like, I know it's a test and everything, but seriously, they could have done that? So they could have sunk 19 of our ships? That's crazy. How were they able to do that? I was in this simulation. How are they able to do that?
In real life, it would have resulted in the deaths of about 20,000 American troops. What happened was that the general leading the Iranian team adopted an asymmetric strategy and used old methods to evade the American surveillance network, such as motorcycle messengers, camouflaged civilian boats, kamikaze speedboats, coded messages, etc. The war game
That sounds like something Iran could very easily do. So, I guess that's fair.
Was meant to test future military technologies, but ended in humiliation. So much so that the exercise was reset, with new rules of engagement being
Whoa, you can't just reset the game. That's not how it works. I mean, it looks like the general for the Iranian team, he was playing within the rules. He was just doing something that Iran could very easily do. So what's the big deal? Why couldn't he do that?
Rigged in favor of the Americans.
How are we supposed to learn anything from that? If we rig a game in favor of the team that has overwhelming supremacy in that department, how is that fair? How is that, like, how does the Iranian team even have a chance then? Isn't this like a learning experience?
As the authentic war game became a scripted event, the leader of the Iranian team resigned, claiming that the purpose
Good for him. Good for him.
of the war game was to reinforce existing notions of American supremacy rather than serving as a learning experience.
He's completely right. He is completely right. This was meant to teach us what would we do in the event of a war with Iran. And we learned nothing. This was just a feel-good thing. This was just to make the government feel better. So we didn't learn anything from this. Apparently, I'm learning something from this, so clearly, a naval war with Iran would not be in our best interest. Losing 19 ships, maybe we don't lose as many in a naval war with Iran, but still, I mean, I don't want to take that chance.
The Millennium Challenge is a reminder that no plan survives first contact with the enemy, and miscalculation is just around the corner. The most likely
True.
cause for an American-Iranian war would be by small deniable attacks. Both sides could start.
And we've already seen those. We've already seen, I think one of our drones was taken out over, I think it was one of the Strait of something. I don't something over in the Middle East. I'm not very familiar with the geography over there.
Such provocations. Imagine the Shia militias in Iraq with close connections to the Iranian security apparatus targeting US military convoys and killing several American troops. From experience, Tehran knows that such minor attacks do not result in direct retaliation from Washington.
That's a problem, because that allows them to just say, it just makes them think that, hey, we can do this, this, and this, and the Americans aren't going to do anything. We can't just let them keep getting away with it, though. We have to figure out a way to show them that, you probably shouldn't be doing that, and we're going to blow you up if you don't stop.
They are deniable. For instance, the US Defense Department estimates that from 2003 to 2011, a little more than 600 American troops were killed by Iranian proxies in Iraq. These kinds of small, deniable attacks are of little consequence. It is only when politicians decide to put.
I don't think 600 American lives is of little consequence. I mean, that's a pretty big consequence. We don't just trade lives like that. We don't just let people go like that. That's not right.
Push ahead with political goals that such events are used to justify actions. In our imaginary scenario, the United States sends aircraft carriers, battleships, long-range bombers, and missile batteries to the Persian Gulf to reassure its allies. An additional 120,000 troops are deployed to the American bases in the Middle East, a figure that is close to the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Not surprisingly, the Iranians perceive the maneuver as a signal that Trump is gearing up for a widespread attack.
I don't think Trump's trying to go to war. I personally don't think he is. Maybe he is. I don't really know the guy, so... But I hope he's not, because I'm sure he knows about the Millennium thing, the whole test we did. So I think he knows that probably not the best idea.
Iran responds by moving its missiles and naval mines out of storage and dispersing them. Although neither side wants a fight, and both parties are merely seeking to defend their interests from an attack by the other, the climate of mutual mistrust and the pressure of time leads to misunderstanding. Add to this Trump's tendency to go off on Twitter, and we have a recipe.
Yeah, Trump's got to stop going on Twitter and talking about all this stuff. I mean, yeah, he can do it, but really, I mean, come on, man, don't be doing that, alright? At least have, like, Melania or Mike Pence go over your tweets before you send them out. That's all I'm saying.
Where a slight attack can ignite severe retaliation. As was the case in the Millennium Challenge 2002 wargame, Iran's best defense is an immediate and devastating preemptive strike. Knowing this, the Americans decide to preempt Iran's preemptive strike. As such, the Pentagon uses its existing air and naval assets in the Middle East to hit ports, ships, and training facilities along the Iranian coast. The operation largely resembles the US airstrikes in Syria in 2017 and 2018, limited to a few dozen sorties. Immediately after the attack, Trump communicates through public channels that the incursion was a one-time strike and that if Iran backs down, there will be no further consequences. Ideally, the Iranian leadership pulls back and things end there. But
yeah, hopefully that would happen. Hopefully we just slap them and then they realize, probably not a good idea to mess with America.
This time it's different. President Rouhani's political opponents bash him.
Oh, that's totally a good idea. I think they're just like straight up burning an American flag, so not the best way to help mend diplomatic diplomatic ties. So just a quick heads up to the Iranian government. I don't think any of them are watching, but if they are, not a good idea to burn the American flag. That we Americans aren't a big fan of that. We really don't like it when anyone does that. So just a quick heads up. Not the best way to make friends. All right.
For being weak while his approval ratings take a nosedive. He is forced to act and illustrate his resolve. To do so, the Iranian leadership has a wide range of options, from proxy forces in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, and Afghanistan to ballistic missiles that can target American outposts and bases in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates.
They do know that they started launching missiles at our bases. There's provocation we could nuke them. Like, I don't want to have to go to nuclear war or anything, but they do know that we have a fair amount of nukes, and all we gotta just say is, hey Russia, hey China, we're launching a nuke at Iran. Just a quick heads up. So if you hear something, that's just us. So they do know that, right? They do know that if they start shooting people, they start shooting rockets at our bases, we can fire rockets back.
Arab Emirates. Meanwhile, in the realm of cyberspace, the Iranian paramilitary goods force can sabotage and shut down a significant portion of Saudi oil production. Finally,
I don't know, man. We got some hacker boy 9000s that could hack into their government. I mean, I don't know. I think we got some smart guys around here that could do something.
In the Persian Gulf, Iranian anti-ship missiles, kamikaze speedboats, and sophisticated naval mines can wreak havoc in the Strait of Hormuz, through which about 40% of the world's seaborne oil passes. The slightest sense of panic would drive up global oil prices and disrupt the world economy, possibly even triggering the next recession. The point is, asymmetric warfare
Here we go again.
is the primary strength of the Iranians, and they know it. In our thought war game, Tehran decides to save face and retaliates by dropping a few dozen naval mines in the Persian Gulf and by commanding its proxies to target US troops, aid workers, and diplomats across the Middle East. With the number of dead Americans piling up, the Pentagon recommends going big. Bolton and Pompeo support the plan and convince Trump that it's the only viable course of action. As the logic of escalation conspires a minor clash into a regional blaze, US bombers hit conventional Iranian targets and destroy much of the country's nuclear infrastructure in Natanz, Esfahan, Arak, Fordow, etc. Still, Washington stops short of an all-out war. On the other side of the fence, however, the Iranians believe they are at full-out war and launch a powerful counterattack. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed off with hundreds of naval mines, while small Iranian kamikaze boats.
That wouldn't be good, because that effectively just cut off the entire strait. That'd basically trap everyone inside. Not a good idea.
Drones, and a fleet of mini-subs deter and harass the American fleet in the Persian Gulf. As a countermeasure, the United States uses surface vessels for surveillance and reconnaissance to detect or eliminate the Iranian attacks. Nevertheless, some attacks and losses cannot be avoided. Likewise, the price of oil skyrockets to $150 per barrel.
Ooh, I hope that doesn't happen, because I do not want to fill up my car when oil prices are $150 a barrel. Actually, I'm going to look up right now, price of a barrel of oil right now. Price of a barrel of oil. Let's see what it is today. Right now, it is... well, it's not too bad. It's, I think it's $58. Okay, $58 for a barrel of oil. I guess that's not too bad. So, but yeah, I wouldn't want it. It'd be triple what it is now. So that means, assuming that's gas around here, like $2.40 something. I guess somewhere in that area, around a little more than $2 a gallon. That means it'd be like $6, $7, $8 a gallon. That would be way too much.
And stagnates GDP growth worldwide. Having crossed the point of no return, Tehran launches as many missiles as it can at US military bases in the area over the next few days. At the same time, Iranian proxy militias target US troops in Iraq, Syria and Lebanon, while the proxy groups in Yemen launch a barrage of rockets against Saudi Arabia and overflow parts of the Red Sea with naval mines and thereby damages the trade passing through the Suez Canal. The global economy takes another beating.
Man, how many times is this economy going to be hit if this happens?
At some point, Israel gets drawn into the conflict and clashes with Hezbollah. Iran decides to raise the stakes for the United States by hitting Israel. As such, Tehran
Oh, that's not good. That's going to get a lot of people angry. That's going to get a lot of people angry.
directs Hezbollah to attack Israel.
Huh. That kind of reminds me of something that salute reminds me of something. I can't say it because YouTube doesn't like that word, so, something that, well, I think we all know what I'm talking about here, that looks kind of similar to something.
Israel using its arsenal of some 130,000 rockets. The assault overwhelms Israel's Iron Dome missile system, leaving the Israelis with little choice but to invade southern Lebanon and even parts of Syria in order to eradicate Hezbollah's local strongholds.
Yeah, that's what
What
they have to
began
do.
as a tit-for-tat now affects much of the Middle East. After weeks of US airstrikes with an average 1,200 strike sorties a day, the regular Iranian army is rendered inoperable, but the proxy groups are harder to terminate. As the fighting drags on, Israeli and Saudi lobbying groups in Washington call for the overthrow of the Iranian government. The situation is
that makes
reminiscent
sense.
of the assault on Libya in 2011, where the United States stumbled into a regime change operation and lacked a clear objective. This time, however, the scale is
Yeah, if you're going to go into somewhere, you better have an objective. Like, you can't just, like, go in... Like, I know you're probably going to get mad at me for this, but, like, in a football game, if you don't have a game plan and you just go in there, you're going to get crushed. Like, that's... You can't go in without a game plan, alright?
vastly larger. Iran turns out to be a whole different battle space. Nearly the entire country is mountainous, which
Yeah, that's going to make it difficult, because, you know, if it's all mountains and you get the valleys down there at the bottom and they're all separated, so it'd be like so invading each little place would be hard and costly, and then at the end of the day, once you take it, you only took a little bit of space, you only took a little bit of land, so this is looking to be like it'd be Vietnam Part 2. Not a good idea then. We don't know. Vietnam the first time around didn't turn out so well.
raises the costs of an invasion into the trillions of dollars. This isn't even considering the destabilizing effects of a refugee crisis stemming from such destruction.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but lots of refugees will be coming out of Iran then. So that's even more refugees we have to take in.
As such, nobody in the White House advocates a large-scale occupation. The price is simply too costly. Instead, the US government tries to engineer the collapse of the Islamic Republic without having to invade it. Yet,
Well, that's the thing. You know, just completely toppling government means instability, and then another group, maybe a worse faction, would take power in Iran.
unlike many of the other Middle Eastern nations, Iran is not an artificial creation of European colonialism, but an ancient civilization whose nationalism runs deep. Most of the 82 million citizens rally behind the Ayatollah's banner, including opposition groups. Even if somehow the religious government is cast out, the most likely faction to inherit the state would be the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, turning the country into a military dictatorship. At worst,
Oh boy, that's just what I said. If that does happen, then another faction, maybe a worse faction, would take power. And the last thing we want is a military dictatorship, because that doesn't tend to work very well.
a public uprising could lead to civil war and the balkanization of Iran. Such destabilizing circumstances would create extremist safe havens as well as increase the flow of refugees to Europe. In all likelihood,
Yeah, that wouldn't work. I mean, that'd be a hotspot for terrorists. They could plan anything they want. No one would be able to do anything because they could be anywhere in that country. I mean, Iran's a big place. So it'd be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Not to mention, again, with the refugees, a lot of them would come to Europe, and there's a big problem with refugees in Europe right now. There's been a lot of people coming into Europe, and there's been a lot of problems caused by that. So, and another, if another wave of that would not help the situation in Europe right now.
The Iranian government remains in place as a weakened nation, and even though the US strikes on Iran's nuclear infrastructure have set the country back by several years, the conflict has convinced the Iranians to restart their nuclear program and take it further underground to construct an actual nuclear weapon, a goal.
But one thing we have to do is ensure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon, because that would not work. I mean, an Islamic theocracy with a nuke would be extremely dangerous. That would be just terrible. There's only a few countries in the world with nuclear weapons. I think it's us, China, Russia, the UK, France has a few, I think, and I think Israel might have a few. I think North Korea's got like a few as well. So there's only a few countries that we have that have nuclear weapons, and I think we'd have another North Korea situation if Iran got nukes.
It had thus far abated. On the whole, the United States would emerge victoriously, but not before tying itself down in yet another Middle.
We would win, but at what cost? We would win, but we'd be stuck in this thing. We'd be back in the Middle East again, and we don't want that. Didn't work out very well the first time around.
Eastern conflict for decades to come. Such a long-term commitment would drain the resources of Washington while granting Russia and China a window of opportunity to revive a multipolar world. Thus, ironically, by winning the war in Iran, the United States is likely to lose its status as the world's sole superpower. Fortunately,
that wouldn't work very well if that happened. We need to be the only superpower in the world, because because China and Russia, China's communist, and communism doesn't work very well, and Russia is basically authoritarian. I mean, it's kind of not, but kind of is. I mean, I don't know what exactly you would describe Putin as, but he does seem to be kind of authoritarian. So that would not work very well. They're already fairly powerful countries, but we can't allow that. We can't allow them to become superpowers. And also, so I guess the best case scenario here is we don't go to war.
All the involved parties understand the dangers and catastrophic fallout of a full-blown conflict, not least the Iranian government. For this reason, a fight between Washington and Tehran is unlikely to occur. However, the pressure of time, the climate of mistrust, the uncertainty of intelligence, and the presence of thousands of troops in the region leaves open the chance of misreading signals and miscommunication, which could conspire an insignificant act into a deadly collision with devastating results. I've been your host, Shirvan.
Well, it's a very interesting video. Very, very informative. You did a wonderful job with this video. But yeah, pretty much we just need to talk this out, I think. I think we need to have a dialogue with Iran and just, talk this out, because this could go very, very badly, very, very fast. And I don't think anyone would want, this wouldn't benefit anyone. This is a no-win situation for Iran, no-win situation for America. So, basically, the best thing to do is not to go to war. And I think that's, I was kind of on the fence here when I came into this video, but I'm convinced now. I'm convinced. Let's not go to war, alright? Let's not do that, alright? It wouldn't work for anyone. Thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Let me know in the comment section if you want to see more videos like this. I know the quality is absolutely terrible, but yeah. Thank you for watching. Check out all the links in the description. Link to my Twitter, as well as the link to my Discord and other things like that. Check them all out. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow.